From Boca Raton, Florida, Rabbis Efrem Goldberg, Philip Moskowitz, and Josh Brody are taking you behind the Bima. The BRS rabbis schmooze about contemporary issues and talk to special guests who give a behind-the-scenes look at how they got to where they are and what keeps them going. Welcome to Behind the Bima.
Good evening. It is 9:30 on Wednesday, 9 o'clock on Wednesday night. Confused, Brody throwing me off. Rabbi Efrem Goldberg, joined by my dear friends, Rabbi Philip Moskowitz and Rabbi Josh Brody, and we're here to take you
behind the Bima.
Behind the steering wheel, Rabbi Brody. Where are you tonight?
I try to pull off. I'm literally on the side of 95, somewhere between Orlando and Boca.
We play a game on Wednesday night called Where's Rabbi
Where in the
Brody?
world is Josh Brody?
There used to be Where's Waldo, but we go with Where is Rabbi Brody? So, Rabbi Brody, where were you today? What job are you on today? What's happening?
For this, I'm gonna just fill. No, I had some great meetings up in Orlando with some of the members of the Jewish community. Great friend of ours, Keith Dvorak, up at the JCC and the Federation. And it was a really, really good day. It was a very, very good day. Thank you.
Nice. Well, let's start by thanking our generous sponsor, the Saka family, commemoration of the 50th year outside of their father, Yosef Ben Selim, on the 23rd of Teves. Saka family, Miami Beach, amazing family. I had the privilege of spending some time with them in Wyoming this summer. It's possible Jimmy and I hit the golf course while we were there. The altitude did not help my game, at least. But Jimmy is on fire, had a hole-in-one earlier this year. So big thank you to the Saka family, Miami Beach and beyond, doing great things. And 50th year outside of their father, but he can look back and see his family and how it's grown and the beautiful things they're doing. And on this 50th year outside, his neshama should have an aliyah. There's no doubt he has tremendous pride in the big, beautiful, growing Saka family. Should continue to grow and have great things. How was your week, gentlemen? We have a big guest on tonight, Joe Gitler, Joseph Gitler. We know him since we're young. He's, I was thinking about it. You got Rabbi Josh Fass. There's a handful of people who woke up one day and said, I know why I'm here. I know what I'm meant to do. I'm going to change the world. I have a mission. And they're putting their fingerprints all over the world in a meaningful way. And Joe is one of those guys. He was just an ordinary, regular guy, grew up with us, went to camp together, went to law school, was working in high tech. And then he said, there's something bothering me. I'm going to give it a go and see if I could change it. And now he's transforming Israel in a certain way. We'll talk about that, and we will introduce him. But first, what's going on in your lives? The world is rapidly changing around us. What's happening?
First of all, before we get to the COVID talk, part of what I love about guests like this is that when my kids asking me at the dinner table tonight who we're interviewing, and I told them the name, they said, we didn't recognize the name. So I mentioned the organization. And we had the greatest conversation about Leket, about the work that they do, about how not everyone has the privileges that we have. And so for me, Dayenu, the fact that we're introducing it to children and the conversation was priceless for me at my dinner table. And I told my kids, exactly what you say, you have Gift to Life, you have Jay Feinberg, you have Josh Fass, you have a number of people who just basically saw their calling, ran after it, and are changing the face of the Jewish world as a result. And it's a great honor to be able to interview him. Absolutely.
We're excited. Looking forward to bringing him on. Rabbi Brody, speaking of changing the world and making a difference, I know that you got a powerful email. Obviously won't reveal the author of that email, but you want to share about that and how it makes you feel?
Yeah, you know what? We run a children's program every Motzei Shabbos called Vishinantam Levanecha. And sometimes you say to yourself, you know what, am I still... is there a real reason for this program to be running? After all, you've got many graduates now that have graduated to the Avos Ubanim, and you've got some women's mothers and daughters. What's a little children's program going to do? Does it really have an impact on kids? And we got a really, really special email this week about how it's really helped keep a family together, and this is their opportunity to spend time learning together. I'll just tell you one more thing. I don't know if you want to elaborate on the email, but someone came over to me and they said, they go to a different synagogue and a different shul in our community, and they said, but there's stuff for the older kids, but nothing for the younger kids. So it was really nice. Now you're seeing other kids from other shuls coming and joining us together, because we really do celebrate the fact we can be in different schools and different shuls, but we can all be together at a program. So
It is beautiful. What a heartwarming email. He talked about the difference it makes for his young child and wanting to get the Jewish education and the impact on the family. And you're right. You think that you put in some time, some effort, but you wonder what difference does it really make. And I'll tell you, and I know Rabbi Moskowitz, you also get emails. Sometimes you give a drasha or you give a shiur or you wrote an article. And I'm blown away. I'm inspired, but I don't act enough myself on it, that people take that time. They find your email address, they hit their keyboard, everything. They write the email. Right. And, I'll tell you who's excellent at this is my beloved wife. Yecheva's really amazing at just sending for no reason, sending a text, leaving a voice note, reaching out to someone and just giving a compliment. Sometimes it's that nachas, I had a moment with your child. I just want to let you know how special they are or the difference you made. And every time, she encourages me when I say that's amazing. She says, it costs nothing. It costs nothing, and it's more appreciated and more valuable than a gift. So you could have to dig deep into your pockets, spend a lot of money, get a valuable gift. But frankly, and I'm sure we feel that way as well, some of the emails you get that's meaningful, that someone tells you what something did for them, and it's just chizuk to keep on going and to work hard, and it's the most really generous thing you can do. It costs the person who writes it nothing. You don't have to pay for the Gmail. You don't have to pay for anything. It's free. But you write that email, and it makes such a difference in someone's life. And it should be a lesson for all of us that if someone touches you, if someone impacts you, if someone inspires you or influences you, just take a moment and let them know, because I don't care who they are or how big they are or how much you assume they hear about it from others. They don't. You know what they hear from others? Complaints, criticism, negativity, everything they're doing wrong. And when you get that email breakthrough that says, just want to let you know for no reason and no ulterior motive, I just want to let you know that this did that for me. You got to skip in your step the rest of the day.
No, and I'll even tell if people are listening, they're saying like, oh, it's self-serving, it's the ego. It's really none of those. Exactly what you said, which is we do a lot of talking, we do a lot of teaching, and you never know what's resonating. You never know when you strike a chord. Like Rabbi Brody knows this, when I gave a drasha 2 weeks ago that clearly struck a chord with a few people, and I got a lot of emails about it. And for me, it was gratifying, not because of ego, but because it's just nice to know that the work that we put in, the preparation that we put in, the creativity we try to bring is impacting other people. And as you said, it gives you chizuk. It gives you reinforcement to push yourself a little bit harder going forward.
Yeah, that was a great email.
Well, I told that person I told that person that sent the email, I said that this one email, I'm good for another few seasons. I'm in. That one email, I'm locked in. And you should know, even you, Rabbi Goldberg, you told me something. You bumped into one of my daughters and you said something like really, I don't know if you knew how important it was to hear it from you. And I called everyone in my family. I said, did you hear Rabbi Goldberg bumped into so-and-so? This is what he reported back. And I was so happy. So thank you for sharing.
It was, you deserve it, and you should have a lot of nachas from her and your children. It's funny you say that about the email about Vishinantam, because I was thinking, your star is rising, you're being recruited all over the world, you're working like 10 jobs right now, and I know there's a big announcement coming soon. You got 1 foot out of here on your way to Israel. So I walk by Vishinantam Motzei Shabbos, and I keep asking myself, when is Brody going to give notice on Vishinantam? Like, when is he going to be done with the floor, with the guitar, with the little kids, with the whatever? And when I saw that email, I said, "Oh, thank God!
3 more seasons, minimum.
He's going to
3 more minimum. We're signing up."
Yeah, so the
contract.
The chizuk it gives is big. The chizuk it gives is no joke, and encouraging people, not us. This is not like the 3 of us saying, "Please send us email." Don't send us emails. We're good. But there are other people that in your life, if they had an impact and you're appreciating it only now, if your children have a teacher, if you're just, again, your children's teachers don't get paid bupkis, nearly not what they deserve. But, it won't put food on their table, but it'll put a smile on their face. If your child comes home and they learn something that you're so proud of, or they're exhibiting a different behavior, or they said something at the Shabbos table, just shoot a text or an email to the teacher. Let them feel good about what they're doing in life. Again, it costs nothing, but these compliments, they go so far. That feedback. Sometimes we're operating in this world in which there's so much noise and we get no feedback. You have no idea if anyone's listening. You have no idea if you're actually accomplishing or what you're doing. And the feedback gives you all that chizuk. So it's good stuff. What else is going on?
So someone sent me a tweet today that I want to run by you guys. No, it's not Corona related. This is something that I've struggled with. I've been called out on a few times, and I I'm not sure I agree with the tweet, so I want your perspective on it. The tweet writes as follows. People who don't respond to texts, WhatsApp messages, correspondence, help me understand. Too busy, ? Too anxiety provoking ? Too labor intensive? I get it. Everyone is struggling, but it just feels like a lack of decency. Am I overthinking
Did I
this?
write that tweet?
Do you agree or disagree? Because I have very strong feelings on it.
I have very strong feelings that I could not agree more. And listen, I know that I'm setting myself up right now because there's someone out there that I didn't get back to on something, but
that's my point.
I try really, really, really hard to not go to sleep at night without answering every text, emails within, call it 24 hours, or if there's an immediate need, immediately to either return phone calls or have someone help me get back to let someone know I'm going to get back to them soon. I do know, because I know on the other side, you send someone a text, you send someone a WhatsApp, you send someone an email, and you're sitting there days, weeks later, and you're saying, what's going on? There's no courtesy, there's no answers, no. Now again, sometimes.
Let me ask you a question. You're never sitting in a meeting and a text will come in. In other words, email, you have an email box, you're going to go into it. It's going to be there until you take care of it. I've seen your phone. Your phone is out of control, right? You and I will be in a meeting. You'll turn on your phone afterwards, flooded with WhatsApp messages. You're never in a meeting and you check a WhatsApp message and then you say, I'll get back to it a little bit later. But because it's not in an inbox and because 45,000 other messages came in, it might slip your mind sometimes. That's happened to me. And I admit that openly. And like you, I try my hardest to get back to people, but I've missed a couple along the way.
That's not what
some of those times. In some of those times, I've gotten reamed out by the person. And
the author of that tweet is not talking about the occasional missed. The author of the tweet's talking about, and I've been there too, where you send two texts to someone, you sent an email and a follow-up, just bring this to your attention again, and there's just radio silence. So the author of that tweet is saying basically, how do you not have any courtesy? Like, where's the etiquette? So the author of that tweet, I don't know who it is or what they wrote, but it could have been me, and I'm embarrassed it should have been me. But the author of that tweet is not talking about the person who generally is good at getting back and occasionally is so overwhelmed that something is missing. They're talking about people. We know these people. I'll tell you how you know these people. You ever see someone's phone and it's got like 20,222 unopened emails, 627 WhatsApps unopened. So you realize that's the black hole where my messages to you are. You're living in a place with 1 billion notifications. You're not really opening, noticing, caring, and there are people that are like, yeah, I don't look at WhatsApp. I don't answer emails. A lot of teens don't answer email. They don't live on email. They're like, you can send me an email. I don't see it. So I don't know.
So then I'm in agreement, because I read this as like my situation where I do my best. Sometimes I miss things, and people have been really hard on me when I miss those texts, and I own up to it 100%. I have to do a better job of it, but it happens. And I simply tell the person, send me an email again, send me a text message again. Not sure you saw this. Know you're trying your best. Would love to catch up at some time. And then I'll always get back to the person.
I'd agree. No right to ream someone until you've done at least one follow-up. Because you don't know if maybe your kid's got 103 fever, you're in the emergency room when that text came in. Maybe you're on vacation and you're disconnecting to connect with your spouse, your children, yourself, and you're making a concerted effort. And the difference is that email has an auto response. Text and WhatsApp, I think Android might be different, but at least on the iPhone, text and WhatsApp don't have auto response. So what are you supposed to do? You're on vacation. You're on a long airplane ride. You're in another country. You're intentionally trying to disconnect. There is no automatic way for someone to know. So I don't think anyone has a right to be disappointed or ream someone because they didn't get back to you on one effort. I think that, if you tried a few methods, if you tried a couple times, somebody's just blowing you off. I don't think that's a nice way to live. And that's not you.
No, I try not.
Yeah. Rabbi Brody, what's your method? Because you don't get back to anybody.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's a difference between, let's say, emails, WhatsApps, and text messages on one hand, and on the other hand, you have posts that you put on Facebook or on Twitter or any other social media. When it comes to emails and texts and WhatsApps, I try my best. Like Phil, sometimes it just happens because there's no way to keep it new. So sometimes you might miss it, but it's not intentional. When it comes to Facebook and posting, I post and go. I never look back. So if people are commenting,
no, that's different. That's different.
Or
that's different. Social media,
I just don't see it. So if you ask a question,
social media, nobody has a right to assume that because they're trying to talk to you in the comments. And in my opinion, I also feel that way about like people who try to message me on Instagram or Facebook or direct message on Twitter. Like once,
right? I never see the messenger.
Yeah, once in a blue moon, I check. You can't expect. I don't think you're entitled to wait and assume someone should get back to you on those non-normative mainstream. Maybe for some they are mainstream, but I don't think in the professional world or even in the private world they're mainstream. So one trick I use, and I'm not sure our audience really cares about any of this. We're going to get to our interview in a moment. But when I'm on WhatsApp and I open something, but I realize I got to get back to them, I mark it as unread. So I remember to go back to it.
Right.
So
I try to do that.
And on text also, sometimes I'll write back and I'll say, please email me. Like, this is really important. If it's like,
great idea.
I have an auto, if I do space, it makes a whole sentence come that says, this is important, please email me. Because I agree, an email, you're going to go through your inbox until you empty it. You have to get back to the person. Text, once you open it, you've moved on and it can get buried below a million more texts.
I know we want to get to our guests. The reason why I raise this is because we like to go behind the Bima in our rabbinate as
Behind
well,
the phone.
Give people a little bit of a peek behind what our lives are like. It is astounding to me, and I think at some point someone will do a paper, a book, a sociological study of the ways that the rabbinate has changed. And if you think about over the last, let's say, 15 years, how the rabbinate has changed in terms of access, right? Growing up, there was obviously no texting, but like the level of frequency of conversation with a rabbi, certainly in my community, you didn't have it, where people were regularly texting, WhatsApping, the access, the expectation of an immediacy of a response. So I just think it's important for people to recognize, and we're living it in real time. And again, I think the paper will be written at some point about the dramatic change in the rabbinate, the expectations of a rabbi, the access that people have, the disability to disengage because texting and WhatsApp don't have those away messages.
Yep.
So I guess for me, it's just fascinating in that regard.
I couldn't agree with you more. I don't want to embarrass anyone. It's not from our community. It's somebody who needed something. I'm happy to help them, and I'll get back to it. But I got a phone message from somebody at 7:44, and then there was a text at 7:58 left you a phone message. And we had a meeting at 8 o'clock, and we came right into this. We're live right now at 9 o'clock, and I will get back to the person, and I'm eager and happy to try to help, not from the community, from elsewhere. They had a question. But you're right. That's that expectation. Like, I left you a phone message, and 15 minutes later, there's a text that says, I called you. Like, but if you were meeting with me,
right,
you wouldn't want me to be answering somebody else's phone message, text message. So you're right. It's a matter of managing expectations. And it is true that sometimes we hear from retired rabbis about their rabbinate niche structure. And in many ways, it's just categorically different than the rabbinate today. It used to be you had office hours, you had your phone at the office, and you had an emergency phone at home. And in between all that, you weren't really available unless someone died and they knocked on your door and the like. Today, someone's in Trader Joe's with all those weird hashkachas, and and I don't blame them because they're there right then. They want to check out. They need to know, can they buy it or not? But they don't understand that you're in the middle of mincha, or you're in the middle of meeting, or you're in the middle of performing a funeral, or you're in the middle of whatever else that we're doing. So, we can't, like 7 WhatsApps, just, is the hechsher, can you answer? Is it okay? So it's hard to manage those expectations.
I had this conversation with Rabbi Dr. Jacob J. Schachter when I was researching a class on a particular rabbi, and I was humbled by how much the rabbi had accomplished and his ability to dedicate his time to so many outside causes and the impact he had on the Jewish world. And I was starting to feel bad about myself a little bit. So I was talking to Rabbi Schachter, who happened to have known this particular rabbi, and he said, Philly, what you don't understand is he did nothing else. Like no one was coming to his classes. So they had like minyanim, they had Shabbos, but like the rabbi at this day and age, in the early 20th century, people weren't coming to their classes. There were no teaching online. There was the access that we were just talking about.
How about the fact that giving a weekly drush is a modern phenomenon? Do you know that for centuries, maybe millennia, rabbis gave 2 drushes a year, Shabbos Agala, Shabbos Shuvah?
Right. Well, don't tempt people with that idea, but yes.
It's coming back.
No joke. Yeah, these are some of the things we balance. But just so it's clear to people, and I know that you both feel this way as I do, we love what we do. We wouldn't change
100%.
As much
100%.
as the messages are coming in from 4 million directions, we love it. And we're trying to balance it and figure it out and create those boundaries around it. And we know it's not you, it's us. In other words, if we didn't answer the text at 11 o'clock at night, the people wouldn't continue. They would be willing to wait till the morning. So we have to set those boundaries, and we know that everyone will respect it. It's really on us to not need to be the people pleasers in that moment, to be mindful and present in whatever we're doing and create those boundaries around it. So we got a great guest. Before we bring him on, just want to tell you a little bit about Leket. So Joe started this organization in Israel, Leket Israel. And Leket Israel today has 120, 130 employees. 15,000 volunteers, 27 trucks, 20,000 tons of food they give out. They work with 330 nonprofits, and they feed 250,000 Israelis a week. Did you hear that number? 250,000 people a week. Basically, I once led a BRS mission to Israel after a war with Lebanon. We went to go volunteer, and we were helping in Tzfat paint apartments, take away the garbage. And one of the things we did is we worked in the field. And one of the things Leket does is farmers harvest the field, but often leave over a certain amount because they've already hit the quota of what they're going to be able to sell. And it used to be squandered. It used to go to waste. So volunteers can come in and pick from the field and help distribute to poor people, people who need. We've all been to events. I don't know, it's got to kill you. You go to a simcha, the shmorg, 80% of the food is still there at the end of the shmorg. And you're like, how could it be? What's going to be with this? So that bothered Joe too. The difference between us and him is he did something about it. So he's repurposing that food and getting it to the people who need. And we'll talk to him in a moment about his story and how that came to be. But it's really incredible, incredible work. And we're honored and proud to know him. So without any further ado, it's a pleasure to welcome our friend, Joe Gitler. It's a great joy and a privilege to welcome an old friend of mine. He's not old, but our friendship is. It's a great joy and a privilege to welcome an old friend of mine. He's not old, but our friendship is. Joseph Gitler, Joe Gitler, founder of Israel. Among my friends, maybe top of the list, making the biggest difference in the world with life, although we have a lot of friends doing great things. It's incredible what you're doing, and we're so honored that you are joining us tonight, Joe. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, and unexpectedly in my car because of the blessing of a lot of rain. We're having some Wi-Fi issues. So I took the car, moved a couple blocks from the house, and hopefully it's going to all work out.
Well, miraculous technological time we're living in that we can pivot and adjust like that. I guess in Israel this season is a good thing, and it's a good thing for the work that you do.
So interestingly, it's a good thing for what we do for the long run, meaning the crops need water, and it's sure better when the water comes, from the sky than when they have to come from desalination or from opening the taps of the Kinneret. But for our specific work, when it's raining, we struggle a little bit because it's hard for us to send our teams into the fields, in heavy rain. So everything, it's a bigger bracha than it isn't, but everything at the right time.
Gotcha. So we'll get into Leket Israel in a moment. We'll talk more about that incredible work. Let's start out with your background. So, we grew up together. We overlapped. You grew up obviously in America. You made aliyah at one point. So tell us about your background. Tell us about your childhood. Tell us what in your own personal story positioned you for what you're doing now. What brought you on aliyah to Israel? What positioned you to be making the difference with Leket Israel that you're doing now?
So thanks for the question. So I grew up in Washington Heights till I was 15. Then we moved to Teaneck. We overlapped in Camp Mosheva. One summer was actually my first summer there. I was only accepted for 1 month of Machal, which was great. It's such a popular program. I know lots of your listeners, or I don't know what you even call people who watchers, have kids who go there, and it's a great program. And certainly that had,
I went.
Bnei Akiva, Mosheva had a great impact on my making aliyah. I went to day schools, Breuer's, Mariah, MTA, Yeshiva University. Got the lessons of aliyah all along the road, got it from my parents. That's what brought me to Israel. Certainly, I would say the most important piece is when I was 16 in summer camp in Israel, I met my wife, Leelah. And for both of us, it was something we both wanted to do. So it was very obvious to us we were going to make aliyah, and we're very lucky we were able to do it. And we decided to do it at a young age because it's just easier. I give tremendous credit, for people. I know we've had many members of your community who've moved to where I live in Ra'anana over the years. All of them came at a little bit different stage with older kids. And that's every stage of aliyah is a challenge, but a unique challenge to come when your kids are older. My oldest daughter, Maytal, who's now, thank God, happily married, got married in January. She got married on the day when they went into the strictest lockdown in Israel. And we got it in just beforehand, but there was only 40 people. The next day, it could have only been 20 people, or maybe not at all. And, you know, coming at any age brings its own challenges, but certainly having come when my oldest daughter was only 2 made things a lot easier. So I have 4 Sabras born in Israel, and my oldest, but as Anglo as we are in Ranana, she still married a proper Israeli. Look at that.
Wow. That is amazing. So
Yeah.
16 years old, you knew you wanted to make aliyah. It's still a relatively young age to know that you want to make aliyah. What specifically drew you? Why did you feel you wanted your destiny there? And when you finished YU, you went to law school. Were you planning on being a lawyer in Israel? Did you want to work for a while first in America and then go? Why law school?
Okay, so it's interesting. I think for a lot of us, the problem is when you come to Israel, you're always coming on. You know, I came on Machach Ba'aretz summer program, Stay Chemed summer everything was vacations, bar mitzvahs, was all, you know, good times. So that's what you think it's going to be when you move. So I think that plays into it. And then of course you're coming, it's just regular life, and regular life is regular life. But there are obviously many benefits of living here and challenges. So again, I think it was just, you know, my late father used to say to me, we teach you all aliyah, but no one actually takes the bait. What's wrong with you guys? So that was, frankly, that was my father. But he was, of course, missed us, and it was hard when we moved. But he was very proud that the education that he gave us and that my mother gave us, that we listened. But we all know it's still a very small percentage of people who actually make it, but more and more every year. Why law school? Look, for me, when I finished YU, I think it was important for me to continue. I think a lot of our community is just an expectation. Like it used to be, are you going to go to college? Now it's are you going to go to graduate school? I don't even know what's going to come next. Like, are you going to graduate school twice? Is that what the expectation is going to be? And so it was very important for me, for my parents, that I do have some graduate degree, something to fall back on, no matter what the plans were. I worked for a year, and then even when I started working, I knew this was it. Like, we're going to a year, maybe 2 years, and then we're going. Would I have perhaps continued in law? Maybe. I was fortunate that I was able to fall into a good position in Israel in the tech world. And so I left the law behind. I'm still technically a lawyer. In Israel, it still seems to be a compliment somehow to say orech din, to call someone a lawyer. And then again, it's, you know, that's, so they write that when they interview me in Israel, they write, you know, Yosef Gitler, orech din, Joseph Gitler, attorney at law. I'm not disbarred, but I haven't paid my fees in about 20 years. So I'm probably technically in the United States, not a lawyer anymore. Until if I pay the fees, I'm sure I can come back. I did pass the bar exam. I enjoyed working on it. I'm happy that I did it. It was a great grounding for, I think, the business world, for the nonprofit world. And I actually enjoyed it. It was interesting. And my son-in-law is actually now studying in IDC, which I'm sure you guys know because you probably have congregants' children who are studying there, have studied there.
So Joe, so you pivoted out of law, and then you were only in high tech for a short time. You pivoted out of there. What did you see that said, you know what, corporate America, high tech, the world of trying to amass, accumulate, make, I don't want to be taken, I want to be giving. What did you see that made you pivot and radically change what you've dedicated your life to and making the big difference?
So great question. Thank you very much. So look, I think a few things happened to me kind of at the same time. So number one, in what I was working after September 11th, things changed dramatically. So my job that I was working on, the tech stuff that I was working on kind of changed a little bit, dried up. So that was at the same time that we were also, it was the Intifada, there was no tourism, it was a really hard time in Israel. All that coupled together with also changes in the Israeli economy, Israel went, you know, in the 90s from being, let's say, a quasi-socialist country to a today I'd say it's hyper-capitalist. It's changed dramatically, the economy here. And in the early 2000s, the cost of living had gone up. There was all this poverty, historic, that we know about in certain communities in Israel. And then you also had the cost of living rising dramatically, the cost of housing rising dramatically, which is something that everyone's talking about in the United States as well right now, talking about it in Israel again now as well. And all these things came together, and I started to get people knocking on my door asking for charity. Some of them probably knocked on your doors in Boca also. And it wasn't only the usual cast of characters. I'm not saying that in a negative way, but there's a certain type that's been knocking on the doors asking for tzedakah for years, and suddenly it was different types of people. It was people, they weren't talking about helping a bride get married. They weren't talking about I don't have an income. It was people said I worked or I am working. This was the worst. This was what put me over the top. I am working and I'm still just not making enough money to make ends meet. And that's just, to me, I was very naive then. I didn't understand that this is the exact same thing that goes in the United States and in Israel, that there are people who work and they just don't make enough money to live. It was kind of new to me. In fact, fast forward a few years later, I'll never forget my first visit to Boca Raton. And such a magnificent place, but you don't have to travel too far from the shul. And I actually stayed on that trip in that part of town. I didn't really understand what I was getting into. You don't have to travel too far from the shul or the homes of many of your congregants to see poverty, right in Boca or in communities very, very close by, or the example we Park Avenue and 96th Street, where the subway comes out in Manhattan. It's a real, and so we live with poverty very close by. And I started to experience it in a different way than I was used to. People knocking on my door, reports on television. And I just said, you know what, I need to take a few months off from the business that I was working in and to see if there's something missing in Israel, because Israel has so many wonderful nonprofits and so many people doing chesed and so many people doing good. And could there be a piece missing we're talking 17, 18 years later, that was clearly the case. There was something missing in the big puzzle of helping the poor in Israel.
I wondered what gave you the confidence. You're a new Ola in a country. It's not your homegrown industry. You see an issue. Most people saw the exact same issue and sat on the sideline, shrugged their shoulders, and maybe kvetched about it at a Shabbos table. What gave you the confidence to say that this is something that I can not only make an impact in, but dramatically change the conversation surrounds such a pervasive, issue facing Israeli society?
So I love the question. I think that waste has always bothered me, and we will talk a little bit more about it, but I've always been bothered by waste. And when I started to think about how I could help, let's go back a step. When you hear people knock on the door and they're poor, or you hear the words below the poverty line, those of us who don't know a lot about the issue, which I certainly didn't 18 years ago, right away we go towards, they must need food. Okay. So that was my kind of jumping off point. I didn't think about, well, how they're going to pay their electricity bill. What if they need medicine? There's so many issues around poverty. All I saw was there are a lot of people struggling to make ends meet. People who are struggling to make ends meet, they probably don't have enough money for food. So I started with that. At the same time, I'm fortunate. I was still living my life in the same way. And like all of us who've been to Israel, we all talk about, what do they do with all this extra food in the hotels? Soldiers in army bases always say, oh, we throw away so much food. Everyone talks about it. You go to weddings. I'm going to a wedding tonight. You go to smachot. Everyone says, wow, look at all this waste. Look at all this food. What are they doing with it? And you're correct, Rabbi. It was one of these issues that everyone talked about. It's always bothered me. I mean, we all grew up in the maybe not all of us, but me and you, we grew up in the 1980s. Our parents, always said they're starving kids in Ethiopia. Finish your plate, which of course doesn't really make any sense, right? I mean, me finishing my plate, how is that going to help the kid in Africa? But it sunk in, and the way it sunk in is that I've always been bothered by waste, but what are you going to do about it, right? Like, what are you going to do about all this waste? And suddenly, here I am, I'm in Israel, Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash, and it just bothered me to no end that there's all this waste and all these people who are struggling to make ends meet. How could we let those two things go together? And what I did was I said, I'm going to start visiting charities, because I think what gave me the confidence, and that was really the rabbi's question, what gave me the confidence to do this is I visited 100 charities over the course of a few weeks, and all of them had feeding as part of what they do. And all of them said to me, we spend so much time and effort raising money to buy food, but we know there's all this waste. But we can't build a whole logistics system. We're dealing with Holocaust survivors, and we're dealing with youth at risk, and we're dealing with battered women. We have to take care of these people and do our job. And we're so caught up in raising money to buy food that we're struggling to do our job. This is for me, because if I can provide them food, they can do their job and maybe help these people have a better life. And so I think that gave me the confidence, because I realized and at the same time, I also called up caterers. And the first 100 caterers I called up, to a T, 95% of them said, where were you yesterday? They didn't say tax deductions. They didn't say food poisoning. They didn't say what's in it for me. They said, how can we help? And
Wow.
when you hear that, that was just, that was a kick in the pants. That just said to me, okay, I've got something here. Before I'd even done anything, I knew. Now, was I planning that 18 years later I'll be talking on this podcast? No. What I was planning was I'll do this for a few months. I'll get it off the ground. I'll raise some money, hire an executive director, and then I'll go back to whatever it is I was doing, working in this business. And it just took off so quickly, the concept of rescuing food, getting food from those who have it and distributing it to those who need it. And it's so commonplace. Like, to this day, I'm shocked. I grew up in New York, so we have City Harvest. It's been around for 40 years. How could it be in the land of 1 million charities that this piece didn't exist? That's, to this day, it's something I can't understand. I can't explain. I can't understand. We'll call it bashert. If we want to, last night I was watching, okay, maybe it's not so inappropriate, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Maybe you guys are fans. And in it, they have John Hamm, the guy who was the star of Mad Men, and he's trying to be very Jewish. So he keeps on trying to use these Yiddish words, but he doesn't know them, but he keeps a notebook. And he's always writing. It's like he says some word, and Larry David says, no, that's not the right word for this. You need to use the word bashert. Please write it down. He's trying to pronounce it. So there. Hopefully, maybe it was just bashert, that this concept just wasn't there. And in fact, I sometimes say that I've had a zchut, in a way, to bring back, the mitzvot of leket, shikra, upeya, which don't really exist, right? They only exist in the time, I think, of the Beit HaMikdash. But of course, if you think of the spirit of the law and not the letter of the law, this is exactly, the intention of those laws. We've just brought it to modern times. In modern times, you don't need to ask a farmer to leave a portion of their field. It's just the way the modern food culture exists, our expectations. When we go to a hotel, what the buffet should look like. When we go to Whole Foods, what the carrot should look like. All this has created these, in a way, obscene expectations of food in our times. And so what Leket really is doing is saying, okay, that's fine. We don't really care so much. You can waste as long as Leket is there to save it. Okay? We don't want you to waste, but if you're going to do it because that's your business model, or that's what consumers expect when they go to a hotel or wherever it is, and that's the expectation. I know, I'm going to go to this wedding tonight. It's going to be a beautiful wedding. And despite my 18 years of public relations and entreaties, to get people to change their way of doing things, nothing changes. The only thing that changed is that there's Leket and other organizations in America or wherever we are who say, okay, if this is the way the world's going to be, we're going to be out there to try to make sure that we don't allow this to actually end up in landfills.
So fast forward, one person calls 100 charities and calls 100 caterers, says, I got something here. Fast forward 18 years, what does the operation look like today?
Okay, so today the operation, we have 130 paid employees. We have a few dozen trucks. We outsource thousands of trucks as well. on a yearly basis when we have pickups that are just too big. Since 2019, we've doubled the amount of produce specifically that we're distributing. So we will finish close, because it's been so rainy this week, that's going to impact our pickups. But we will finish somewhere close to 60 million pounds of fruits and vegetables that we collect and redistribute this year. Our meal rescue, which is what we've talked mostly about, is unfortunately down because of COVID. Everything's changed. So we were in 2019 around 3 million meals. We'll be closer to 2 million meals this year, which I think is a big accomplishment. What we did in the interim, especially at the height of COVID, is we actually raised money specifically to purchase meals from caterers and hotels and corporate cafeterias, which normally give us food for free. So we bought 1.3 million meals over the last a year and a half, I should say, which helped keep a lot of businesses afloat. It cost us, as you can expect, about 5 times more than it normally costs us. But it was the right decision for the right time. Now I think everyone's a little bit more comfortable with, well, not more comfortable with COVID, but we have a better understanding. And so, we've cut down those purchases, although now in Israel, they're talking about lockdown again, maybe in a few weeks' time, besides the closures of the airport and all you, my good friends in America who can't come here. And by the way, I can't leave the country either. So it's now it's a two-way street. At least we're even, right? We're equal right now. You can't come and I can't go.
So I want to go behind the
Right.
Bima with you for a second. I want to ask you, and then we'll get Rabbi Brody in one second, but I want to go behind the Bima. Mark Twain famously said the 2 most important days in a person's life are the day they're born and the day they find out why. So what's it like? What's it like to be somebody who says, I know my mission on earth. I know why I'm here. And you're not done yet by any stretch. Please, God, there's a lot more that you're going to do and could do and will do. But, many people, they're just struggling to get through the day. And that's also their mission, not to minimize or not to judge someone who's paying the bills, getting through the day, raising their family, the path of Torah. But you've started a revolution. So what's it like to say, look back at your life, look at the trajectory, look at those pivotal moments, look at that you had that thought. Rabbi Moskowitz said you saw waste. Many others would have shried or cracked or said at the dinner table, can you believe how much gets wasted? You picked up the phone, made phone calls. What's it like to not only celebrate your birthday, but to celebrate your why day? To look at Leket and know this is my contribution, this is my legacy, and to not be satisfied, to want to continue to build on that.
So again, it's a beautiful question, and thank you for asking it. Look, I think for me, number one, I have every day I say, what hakarat hatov I have. Good fortune to spend my time doing this, and not just Leket. I spend a lot of my other time working with dozens of other charities and trying to. You're gonna laugh, by the way. A whole soccer team just sat down next to me here. So, I'm like,
it's great.
So, yeah.
I love it.
Hi guys. So I guess I am sitting in a shopping mall. So what do I expect? That's going to be quiet here. So
Nice.
So look, first of all, I have so much hakarat tov. It's endless. Like every day I just say, why have I been given this opportunity? If I've been given this opportunity, it's not just Leket. I have to spend my time helping other people who have ideas. I just came from Tel Aviv, meeting with a new initiative that's dealing with elderly who are lonely and need food, and how can I help and how can Leket help? That's what my day is like, by the way, all day long. It's like, wow. And the nice thing about the charity world, unlike the for-profit world, is I'm happy to give my advice. I'm happy to share. I have nothing to, there's only one thing I tell people I won't share. I don't give away my donor list, because financial donors, because they just wouldn't appreciate that if I start handing it out to every charity. Now, that doesn't mean, if I meet with someone and they're doing wheelchair basketball, and I just met with someone who I know, and even though they're a Leket supporter and their passion is wheelchair basketball, of course, I'm gonna share that. But in general, the opportunity to share your experience and expertise with others, so that just So that takes the good fortune that I've been given, and hopefully that makes it, exponential and helps it grow. That's on the one hand. And I would add to that I just I'm just excited every day when I wake up. Like, what a great, my father, who worked very hard to get to where he was as a doctor. It was always a pleasure to see how much he loved being a doctor. It wasn't a chore for him. My mother used to say if he had a nickel for every Saturday night, it was like a clinic in Teaneck at the house, because he was an
Right.
ENT, my father. And so that's like, I call that a pediatrician for adults. So, it's like I look at it and I say, my father, how lucky he was, and I have the same thing. And I just wish that upon everyone. I tell my kids all the time, like, yes, you have to make a living, and you're gonna have to work hard. But I try to find something, and it's not easy. Like, did I know this was? I didn't know was gonna be my future, and it's been a learning process, day in, day out. And I just wish that upon everyone. It's so hard. I think, listen, I'm on this StreamYard with 3 rabbis. So obviously anyone who becomes a rabbi, no one does it because they had nothing else that they could have done. Okay? Like, that's, it's a sad, I call it's an indictment kind of on Jewish life sometimes, that you go home, you tell your parents I'm becoming a rabbi, they're like, oh my God, what did we do wrong? Okay? Or, it's the same discussion when your kid comes to you after our entire life is dedicated to Judaism, and they say, I want to say Shana Bet. Now, I'm not talking about people who maybe can't afford it, need their kids, but my father, again, I like to compliment my parents. When I said I wanted to stay for a second year learning in Israel, it was, and it wasn't even a question. They're like, our whole lives are dedicated to this religion. Like, it wouldn't make any sense. Now, when my brother Mark said, I want to stay a third year, they said, okay, but now you have to commit. You have to commit to Judaism. You have to commit to, and he's a rabbi. Okay. And he did that. So, so I'm very appreciative, and that's where I am, very much in my life. And so I want that for my kids also. I pray that they'll find, and everyone should find that. It's not easy because there are a lot of difficulties especially in the modern Orthodox Jewish life, that are very expensive. And I'm not even talking about keeping up with the Joneses. I'm just talking about keeping up with the tuition. Okay. And, so again, maybe this is my call for aliyah. You'll make less money in Israel, but you'll pay less tuition. And I look at a place like Boca, and of course, much of it is because of your influence. That I'll put it to like this: when Boca is so big now and so popular, so even if you lose some of your really good congregants to Israel, it's okay.
We would love nothing more. We talk it all the
We love
time.
nothing more.
We would love and celebrate nothing more. We'd love to turn the lights off. If everybody says we're up, how many Israelis say to us all the time, Rabbi, if you would just announce you're going, they'd all go with you in dreamland. But if everyone would say, we're going, let's go, lead us, we're more than happy to shut the lights off and head out.
Right. So, by the way, I think that's a success for a community like Boca, as opposed to, let's say, I have friends who, I'm not going to name communities, who've come from other very small communities. And when they come, besides the fact that they could afford and they were paying 4 full tuitions in a small community, this guy was the gabbai and this and the shaychet and it's really, really hard. When you move from Boca, when you move from Teaneck, when you move from where my wife's from Toronto, people miss you. My parents missed us when we moved, but when it comes to impact on the community, unless you're a really big philanthropist, then it's so yeah. So I appreciate that it's because interesting. I just met with an organization that's, well, maybe this will give it away, that sends rabbis to communities around the world. And he said to me, one of their biggest challenges is there's some communities that say, don't send us someone who's too good, someone who's too, influential, because then they're going to, then the kids are going to want to make aliyah, and all the parents are going to be upset at me. So why did I bring this? So why I bring it up because I to this day, like, the understanding and I was very hard. Oh my God, I couldn't tell my parents. I waited till Pesach. We moved in the summer. I couldn't do it. I felt so bad for them. Their only grandchild, my brother was married. Their only married child at the time. And like, oh, the poor people. And now we're just going to abandon them. But, they're certainly, when they see what we've accomplished in Israel, that makes it all worth it. And that's my only regret. My only regret is leaving my parents. My only regret.
Right.
I'm sure. Rabbi Brody, jump in.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, Joe, it's great to see you. And also got two kids in IDC, Reichman. They love it. They're in Herzliya. I don't know, maybe they're walking behind you at the mall right now. I don't know.
Send them, but yeah, send them my way. We're happy to have them for Shabbat.
We love it. We love it. And just wondering, you mentioned almost from the beginning, you anticipated maybe there would be some struggles, but it seemed to work out. You spoke to caterers, and everyone was more than happy to partner with you. I'm just wondering, on the Israeli government side, was there ever a point where they stepped in, or there was just some bureaucracy where you feel like everything else was working, but then all of a sudden you hit a bump in the road, which kind of turned you off? And how'd you overcome that?
So interesting question. The government continues. Oh, you're gonna have the best laugh in a second, guys. If she sees me, Leket's director of marketing is literally here buying a cookie. She's gonna have the best laugh. She's gonna walk. We're gonna introduce you guys to her. That's too funny. If she sees me, if she doesn't see me. So anyway, so look, the government's been tough for us. Anat, look what she's been having such a good. Come here. Okay. Just come say hello. You're going to laugh at me. I'm on a podcast now, but I was having trouble with my internet. So I came over here.
Hello.
This is Anat.
No.
The email, when you guys get spammed by Leket, blame her. Don't blame me. But if you like the message, give her the credit. Give her the credit. So
You're doing a great job,
We're
Anat.
lucky to have her.
Keep them coming.
Funny.
So you were talking to?
I'm talking to three friends who have a great podcast, rabbis from Boca Raton, from Florida.
Okay, have fun. And
Thanks.
great to have Joseph with us. Bye.
Enjoy. B'te'avon.
Wow, this is really a shchuna. This is a small neighborhood. So look, we've had many challenges throughout our years. I don't want to give credit to the government for helping us get through them. Exactly the opposite. The government's been the best thing the government's done for us over the years is stay out of our way. That's a big thing, by the way. Okay. Look, if I told you the government was giving us 50% of our budget, then it would be okay if they were in our way or partners. But we get a very small percentage of our budget from the government, and so we're appreciative that they, in general, stay out of our way. We have some great projects, though. We have a project now where the government covers the cost of 10,000 fruit and vegetable baskets for families every month, and the only way they get it, we just have to report to them. So that's great. So. The key thing the government did do for us is we have a law. We have a Good Samaritan law that we passed together with the government that protects food donors from legal liability. So that's not usually a thing people think about when they think about what the government can do. But the government has and we're trying to work with the government to give better tax deductions. We'd like the government to put restrictions, penalties on companies that throw away food without first trying to give it away. It could be the carrot, it could be the stick. There are a lot of different ways of the government working with us. Tax deductions, right? If the government doesn't give us a tax deduction, that's a big challenge for us. So we talk in a lot of different. We're always like someone from Leket is literally in the Knesset every single day, talking on this committee, talking on that committee, meeting with these people. But the government has been less important for us. I'd say we're much more of a private organization. I would say the biggest challenge to Leket over the years has been growth, managing our growth. And in fact, the biggest challenge in our lifetimes has been the propellant for that. Because if you think back to March 2020, by the way, I was at APAC. Did I see you on that first day of APAC?
Probably.
I'm trying to remember. So I stayed only for one day. Do you remember why I and some other Israelis left after the first day?
No.
It was elections in Israel the next day.
Right. That's right.
If I had known, and that was my first APAC. Obviously, APAC was scheduled before the elections. And if I had known there'd be another election after that, I would have stayed. The difference is if I would have stayed, I would have been in quarantine. Because those were my friends from New Rochelle who were the super spreaders.
Right.
I know all those people really well. You probably also know some of them. And it was amazing. And I was having the time of my life on that first day. Well, while I was walking around interviewing. It was amazing. Like, I tried to channel the 25% of Ellie that I am. I tried to channel it for that day, and it was an amazing day. By the way, if I hadn't come back that day, we wouldn't have had Purim Suda. Like, the whole thing was. By the way, who ended up going to quarantine? My son, who unbeknownst to us, went to Sinai, and the Israeli government said anyone who was in Egypt had to go into quarantine. And he said, that's not Egypt. I said, well, a lot of Israelis would like to think it's not Egypt, but technically it is Egypt right now.
Right.
So
can I just jump in for a
I-
second? Because you mentioned that one of the greatest challenges is the growth, managing the growth, channeling the growth. Where did you learn that from? Again, I know you lawyer, business, high tech. Like, are there books you read? Are there people that you spoke to? Where did you gain the knowledge that you needed along the way to be able to scale the growth of Leket?
So definitely a lot of reading. Okay, I'm not going to say I read like how-to books, but I think a lot of books which talk entrepreneurs, biographies. That was something I spent time with, and I think you can always learn tidbits. You're never going to get the full picture.
Can you recommend one that you jumps off the top of your head?
That's a good question. I have to remember the name. There's a book by one of the founders of Home Depot, which it's not Arthur Blank, and it's the third guy who no one talks about. But I found that very interesting. Also, I would give definitely kudos to my father-in-law, Henry Kashitsky, who I spent a lot of time. He's an entrepreneur and a very successful businessman. A lot of time talking to him and others in the family who are business people, because there are a lot of similarities. I think for me, if you'd said to me, like, what's the most important kind of business decision that you made, or the thing that I understood very early on that you can't do everything and you can't do everything well. And the best decision I made was after a few years, not many years, 5 years into Leket, I understood that to take this to the next level, I need to focus my energies on the things that no one wants to do, which is fundraising, marketing, and public relations. And I need to bring someone else in, a proper Israeli who's going to run the show. And in our case, a secular Israeli, I thought would also be better to kind of give that, and someone who understood, diaspora Jewry, someone who had maybe lived overseas, perfect English. So God bless Gidi Kroch, who is our CEO for more than a decade, and is an Israeli, but he spent 4 or 5 formative years in the U.S. and then 10 years before Leket also working in the U.S. So we had that. I never speak to him in Hebrew ever, and that's been a perfect, I think, partnership. He and I, and the proof is in the pudding. When he came in, we had 30 people. Now we have well over 100 people. When he came in, we were probably working with 50 nonprofits, serving 50,000 people. Today we work with 300 nonprofits, serving over 250,000 people. Everything has just, and so a lot of his partnership, a lot of is knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at. But maybe I'm good at it also. I don't know. But, I built it, but to a point. And so, here, perfect example. I'm not Friedman Cold. Did I ever think we'd have a director of marketing? That's only happened because of the steps we've taken to grow. No, slicha. Someone just asked me a question. If I saw they can't find their trophy.
The soccer team.
Yeah, the one thing they don't want to lose.
Soccer team.
So I think that, but Rabbi, if that was a very long-winded answer, but really there's only one right answer to that question. And this has nothing to do with ego. It's on-the-job learning. Like, let's be frank. Okay, I've got 3 rabbis on this call here. Like, if you think back to rabbinical school, the only thing that really helps, obviously you need some Torah knowledge. The only thing that really helps is maybe that pastoral, training that you got. Like, are you a psychologist? No, but you are. All 3 of you are psychologists. I have no doubt. Okay, having a brother for a rabbi, and my closest friend is a rabbi. It's just but most of it, even whatever, or medical school. My God, go speak to the doctors, or lawyers. Did law school have anything to do with what that 1 year that I was a lawyer? Irrelevant. Okay, totally irrelevant. It was great, and I enjoyed it. And that's what I think most things are. Entrepreneur. Like, I just met these 2 young entrepreneurs who I just met who are doing this great project, getting volunteers to make meals for the elderly who are alone and then bringing it to them. And like all the logistics are on the volunteers. Beautiful project. They just finished in IDC a new program, which is entrepreneurism. Like they said, what's the secret sauce? So I said, guys, like, it's great you did this course, but let's be honest. Look what you've just done over the last year and a half. It was all you. So I started something, and I'm very lucky that I was able to start it, and it's been a success. But all the partners along the way, from the charities to the advisors to the board to the financiers, it all came together. And yes. I think of Arnold Palmer. Arnold Palmer, you guys live in Golfland, USA. So Arnold Palmer once hit a hole in one. And at the press conference, they said to him, Mr. Palmer, to what do you ascribe your good fortune? And he said, isn't it amazing? The more I practice, the better luck I have. Okay. So I think this is, and this is not about me, but I think any entrepreneur and I meet entrepreneurs all the time, because who are the biggest? If I take the 10 biggest supporters of Leket, all of them are entrepreneurs, the 20 biggest. And all of them, to a T, I ask them, like, did you ever imagine you'd be where you are today? And thank God, to this day, as big egos as they all have to have, because you can't do what these people have done without big egos. No one said to me, oh, of course, sure. When I had that small little hardware store, I thought it would become whatever. No one says that. And it's true. Because it's a lot of pieces that fall into place along the way, and a lot of mazel also, but you have to work hard to make your mazel. I really believe that.
So Joe, thank you for your time. You've been generous with your time. I know the tech's been a challenge, and you've got other things to get to tonight. But I want to close us out with one more question, which is, as somebody who we're privileged to know and call a close friend who, again, you pivoted your life. You were on one trajectory, you were in one course, and you said, you know what? I see an opening. I see a need. I see my mission. I want to make a difference. What message would you have to people out there who maybe are dissatisfied in their job, who maybe feel a hole in their heart, maybe they feel there's something empty, and maybe it won't be as big, as broad as Leket. Maybe it's getting involved in their shul, getting involved in outreach, getting involved in learning, getting involved, who knows in what capacity. What message would you say to someone based on what you've learned, that you don't have to be satisfied, you don't have to be complacent, you don't have to remain on whatever path you were on, but you can make a change, you can make a difference, and you won't look back. You'll be proud that you did. What message would you send to people?
I'm not sure I can say it better than you just said it, but look, I think it's a very important point. I've been lucky that I was able to change my entire life. My trajectory of my life is 180 degrees different than where it would have been. I'm sure I would have been involved with charity, hopefully involved in charity, hopefully able to give, but to have my whole life dedicated to charity, that is a very special position. And I understand that. And but everyone can help. Everyone can volunteer. Everyone can find something that interests them. There are endless opportunities to help in this world. It doesn't matter what community you're in and anything you're interested in. There is someone out there doing it. If you find something, and then we should talk about, if you can take that plunge and change your life completely, but don't give up just because, you may not be able to start your own charity, start your own synagogue, right? Even, here you have Rabbi Goldberg, very successful rabbi of the Boca Raton Synagogue, right? You came in, and this is my opportunity to compliment you. You came in after a legendary rabbi, and look where the shul is today. And at 120, when you retire, if they let you even retire at 120, hopefully the next guy will come in and be able to even take it to the next level. Hopefully the lights will be off by then, but if they're not off by then. So I just, stay strong. That's what I would say to people. Stay strong. You'll find that meaning. Sometimes it takes a long time. Okay. And I'm continually enthused every day, because every day I see new projects, new initiatives, people finding their way, finding where they can be. But I will say there are so many wonderful outlets out there that need help. So it's not always, I got to do my own thing. Sometimes the best thing you can do is find something that exists and help it grow and help it solidify.
That's a great message. Well, Joe, thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for the impact that you're having. Thank you for inspiring our listeners and viewers and for being with us. And we can't wait till the borders open up in both directions. And hopefully it will be over there that we can be with you and spend time together. We'll let everyone know where they could find Leket to learn more about it. But thank you really for all that you do. And it's great to see you.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I, as much as I want to come to Florida, I know everyone in the U.S. wants to come to Israel even more. So, you know, we bless our leaders that they should have wisdom. And I have no qualms with them. It's an impossible situation to be in. And just everyone needs to stay calm. I know it's very hard, very, very hard for people to not be able to come to Israel at their own will. And the good news is I'm also caged now. So I look forward to seeing everyone in person soon, hopefully in the Leket warehouse, working hard and, keep us in mind. And thank you very, very much for the opportunity. I apologize for all the changes in backgrounds. I was in my car, I was in the mall, and, please reach out. Anyone who has any questions, my email is Joseph, JOSEPH @leket.org. Stay safe, everyone.
Easy. Thanks, Joe. Take care. The great, first of all, everybody's in a different background. Everybody's changed.
I think this is a record for Rabbi Brody.
This is some episode. This is some episode, by the way. Joe Gitler. We started in his car. We ended up in the mall in Herzliya. Rabbi Brody started in his car in Orlando. He ends up in his house, in his studio. You could tell tonight we're live and on the fly and trying to deal with technology as we go.
Professionally produced show.
Here we go.
Yeah. Trying to bring to you the most professional podcast, Jewish podcast on the internet and available. Joe Gitler, Leket Israel, doing great things. There's a reason he's been listed as among the most 50 influential Jews in the world, and he won a Nefesh B'Nefesh award, and he's feeding countless people. He's humble, he's modest, he's making a difference. Check out Leket, Leket.org, Leket.org, and hopefully we can be back in Israel soon. Next time you're there, volunteer in a warehouse, volunteer in a field, and pick the tomatoes. There's nothing like getting your hands dirty, helping feed some people. And he's doing an amazing thing.
I'll tell you, for me, one of the most impactful parts was when he described his education.
Right.
That a lot of it's learning on the fly, that it's being willing to read books, ask for advice, bring in people who are going to challenge you and expand, what your knowledge base is. And I think those are great qualities. And I think there were a lot of really important tidbits in there in whatever field you are, whether you're a rabbi, a social worker, a psychologist, a businessman, an entrepreneur. I think some really important reminders there.
I know I'm hung up on this. I said it before he came on. I said it to him during. I'm going to say it again afterwards because we've talked about the books we want to write. So, I have a couple books in my head I want to write, but this is one now. I was thinking about combining several Shabbos Shuvah, Shabbos Hagadol, Drusha themes and a book that would include, I once gave one on figuring out your mission in your life. Who are you meant to be? How are you different than everyone else?
He was the climax.
Yeah. So at the end of that drusha, I had a list of people who the world is different. There's a guy named Rosenberg who started Shotnas in America, the first Shotnas checking factory, or Sharsheret, what's her name of blessed memory, who started Sharsheret, and Joe Gitler, Yibadol L'chaim Tovim Va'aruchim, or Rabbi Fass and Nefesh B'Nefesh. And, there are people, and it's not only that magnitude, that level, but I think, that would be one of the chapters would be, what are you meant to do? How do you figure that out? On what scale? What impact are you meant to have? But that's it. He could have remained a lawyer, could have stayed in high tech, had a comfortable job, but he saw that need and decided to pivot. And it's really challenging all of us, like every day, to wake up and say, not what can we take from the world, what can we give the world? Not what are our rights and entitlements, what are our duties and obligations? How are we uniquely positioned to make a difference that Hashem is waiting for, that God is waiting for, that no one else is here ready to do? I had Dvar Torah, actually, the Parsha class yesterday, I didn't get to. I happen to just have this sitting here. The pasuk says, Hashem says to Moshe, Lech v'ashlachacha, go and I'll send you. I'll make you my shliach. So Or Chaim says, what do you mean? It should be the opposite. Eshlachacha v'telech. I'm going to make you my agent. I'm going to send you, and then go. First, somebody tells you what they need you to do. What's your mission? They send you, and then you go. What do you mean go, and then going to send you? So Rav Zadel Epstein, were they okay with it? Rav Zadel Epstein
Brody's
answered.
throwing pens at someone in his house.
Someone's talking over here. And I
Welcome
told them
home.
we're going
Pens at
live.
your children.
Well,
Welcome home.
thank you, AJ. Thank you.
Evidence that the show is live. Way to interrupt the Dvar Torah. So Rav Zadel Epstein says, why does it say lech v'ashlachacha, not eshlachacha v'sei lech? Not, I'm going to make you my agent, I'll tell you your mission, and then go, but go, and then I'll tell you. He says, because you've got to be a person who's going. First, it's the mindset. What difference am I meant to make? I'm a doer. I'm a giver. I'm going to go. I'm going to be of service. I work for him. He doesn't work for me. And then you'll figure out what your mission is, right? So Gitler called 100 caterers. He called 100 charities. He started. He went and he figured out his mission. And many people are waiting to be tapped on the shoulder. Here's your mission, and then they'll go. They got it backwards.
First of all, it's a beautiful Dvar Torah. Thank you. I'll just add, I think that the most important caveat to that is what he shared at the end, which is you don't have to be a founder. You don't have to start Gift of Life. You don't have to start Leket. Not everyone is equipped with that. And some people might be listening to that and say to themselves, you know what? I don't have the pedigree. I'm not an extrovert. It's not my personality type to be like that. And what he said at the end is the greatest compliment to that Dvar Torah. You don't have to be a founder. If you're not that type of person, but there's a million organizations that could use something that you have. Right. It could be a gift, a talent, an ability, something that you could contribute. You don't have to start something, but you could contribute to something. And everyone has to do that. Everyone has to find an organization that speaks to them and say, what can I contribute in even my small little way to make that organization or that cause just a little bit better?
Yeah, and I should mention Rochelle Shoretz of blessed memory started Sharsheret. Another example, she went through her own journey and used that to make the world a better place. Absolutely, I agree. And I want to be careful because I know we have people who listen who say they're fighting illness, they're fighting mental illness, they're fighting to put food on the table, and solving world peace or solving world hunger is just not right now on their radar. So you need to know for some people, their mission is to get to the end of the day. Given the cards that they've been dealt, to play them in a way that you get to the end of the day, that in itself is for some people the fulfillment of their mission. So the mission is not necessarily grandiose. It's like you were just saying, the mission is not necessarily grandiose. It's not center stage. It's not the spotlight. For some people, the mission is just get to the end of the day. Be good, kind-hearted, be a faithful Jew, be a good parent, a good spouse. For some people, that's the mission. But the point is, do we go through life with an attitude? Is it around what can I take? What can I give? It's what are my rights and entitlements? So it's my duty and my obligation. And I think that he's a perfect example who obligates us.
It's amazing. You know, there's one part where he spoke about the government, and I've spoken to people locally about doing things involving food, and sometimes they'll say, well, you can't really do it because there might be a problem with the food and someone gets sick and then someone ends up getting a lawsuit or something. He said, you know what? We just passed a law. We worked with the government. There's a Good Samaritan law, and now everyone can do it. Yeah. Why can't we do the same thing? It's amazing.
Solutions. You got to be focused on solutions and making that difference. So he does obligate us. It was a great conversation. He's a good friend. We're proud of him and grateful he was on. We've got some amazing guests lined up and very, very excited to share them with you. And thank you again to the Saka family, 50th year site, Yosef Ben Salim, Neshama Sharav and Aliyah. Any closing thoughts, rabbis, gentlemen, dear friends? Rabbi Brody, where's your next trip? Where are you going to next?
I have a list of about 15 cities, and I'm hoping to come to you live from one of them.
Is this, in what context are you visiting these cities?
There's so many contexts right now. God willing, 2022, we're going to have something special to share. It's coming soon. I got a birthday coming up. That's what's coming up.
Birthday coming up.
You do.
Yes.
Yehoshua's birthday, December 25th.
47?
Well, yeah, I'm already 47. My Hebrew birthday took place already last week. So 47, join the club.
Amazing. Don't ask me why that reminds me, but maybe next week we should talk about this event we're doing with Ambassador David Friedman, and Ben Shapiro will be participating in it. And we're doing it with the Latina Coalition for Israel, our evangelical friends supporting Israel. It's a night in celebration and advocacy for Israel. Have started getting a little bit of heat. Not surprised, and not surprised from whom, that we're doing it in conjunction with that group. I went back and checked with some of our rabbis, our leaders, distinguished people who've worked in this area, who say 100% it's got the endorsement of Poskim, and Israel needs it, and needs it maybe more than ever. So, but we should maybe talk about that, unpack a
That'd be
little bit
great.
about
Loved it for
that,
that one.
and what's going on with that. So we could talk about that next week, among other topics as well. We made it an hour, 15 minutes, and we didn't mention the Big C. We did not mention.
I was gonna. Had I not seen that tweet, that's where I was going at the beginning. And all I'll say is this much: everyone,
Okay, here we go.
because you and I spent a lot of our day on this. Everyone has got to give their leaders a little bit of slack. Everyone's doing their best. Schools are doing their best. Shuls are doing their best. You might not agree with every policy. You might be frustrated that it's too much or too little. But here's what I could promise you. And of every rabbi I know and every head of school I know, everyone is doing the best that they can with the information that they have and in the politics involved. Everyone's doing their best. And sometimes you'll agree and sometimes you'll disagree, but it's got to be agreeably. It's got to be with civility, and it's got to be with the benefit of the doubt. There,
Absolutely. I want to end with a positive note. I want to end with a positive note that I never thought I'd see. I don't know if you saw this in the news, but at his press conference yesterday, President Biden talking about Omicron, he credited Trump. He credited the last administration with the vaccine, and then today in an interview, Trump basically they
so
were
surprised.
Now they were baiting him to say something negative about Biden, and he said, I can't say anything negative today because he just complimented me yesterday. He goes, and I never thought I'd see that or get that credit. So let me give him credit today for something. And that's a little hopeful. I like that, because significant differences, one could argue important differences, maybe a lot to criticize on both sides. But the bottom line is you talked about a little civility. There was a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of hope of civility, a glimmer of unity, a glimmer of the ability that in the face of this new wave to say, thanks for what you did. Thanks for what you did. Let's at least not need to fight for a moment and just rally around what could be the solution. So, it doesn't make news, right? Because this is not exciting. It's exciting when they attack and kill and undermine and name call. It's not exciting when people get along, but it should be exciting for us. So that was breaking news for me. I was really happy. I wish we could build on it and expand on it. Probably tragically, it'll be short-lived, but it is a hopeful, optimistic message that we can, even people with significant differences can rally around commonality, can give credit where it's due, can lower the temperature a little bit in the way that we talk to and about one another, and all for the greater good. That was a little, I don't know, did you guys hear about that?
I saw that article. Yeah, I saw that as well.
Yeah, just a little glimmer of hope. I was happy to see that. So, all right, until next time, everybody, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay holy. We'll see you next time.